Hello again. This is Joe Macaroni. Joe Macaroni explains it all. Today, getting back to one of my favorite topics, and I think some of you enjoy these too, unusual nicknames that I can remember from the past. Okay? Keeping in mind that I'm Italian, so some of them may have relevance in some places and not in other places. But anyway, I'm going to give it a shot today. 12 unusual nicknames. The first one. This guy's nickname was Bow Wow. You know, like a dog goes bow wow. Bow Wow was not a guy that you fooled around with. I don't know why they ever called him Bow Wow. Not to his face, of course, but that was his nickname. Bow Wow. Another one that you didn't mess around with, and you also didn't call his nickname to his face, was the Blind Pig. The Blind Pig dealt in clothing from the basement of his house. I won't say it was hot, but it was warm. He was called the Blind Pig because he was pretty hefty and he had terrible vision. But again, that was a name that people used, but I never ever, in all the time that I knew him, had anybody call him that name. They called him by his real first name. Another one that I remember quite well from being a kid, Mona the Groaner. Now, Mona the Groaner got her name from us kids because she lived on the second floor of an apartment very close to where we all lived. And when her boyfriend would come over, well, they would have sex. No air conditioning in those days. Windows open with screens on them. And we would be outside, us young kids, listening to Mona the Groaner moaning away. Mona the Groaner. Another one that I remember so well, probably the toughest young guy of my age group, was a guy named Gaga. That was a play on his name. But Gaga took crap from nobody. He was just almost mean. And you know, he turned out to be a successful businessman, changed as he grew older, but as a kid, Gaga was somebody, when you saw him coming, you crossed the street. You crossed the street. Another guy was Johnny Bowtie. Again, this is one of these things there's no rhyme or reason for it. As far as I know, Johnny Bowtie never wore a bow tie. He never wore a tie, but he was bow tie. The only thing I can simply kind of grasp is that in Italian, his name sounded like bow tie. And that's how he became Johnny Bowtie. Bubble ass. Well, bubble ass referred to a lady on our street who had the biggest keister that juggled when she walked. And all the guys referred to her as bubble ass. I can remember her. I can remember her clearly. Polly Mumbles. Polly Mumbles was a tough guy. He was part of you know what. But Polly had a problem with speech. He stuttered. And people referred to him as Polly Mumbles. So if there were two or three Pollys, one guy would be Polly Mumbles, one guy maybe Polly the Knife, the other guy may be Big Polly. He was Polly Mumbles. Again, never to his face. And he was a funny guy and a fun guy to be around. Polly Mumbles. Stone Cold. There was a gentleman who was called Stone Cold. In fact, there was more than one gentleman called Stone Cold, but he was the Stone Cold. Stone cold meant that he was a killer. He was a stone cold killer. And if you ever saw this guy or met him, look, you would think a priest would be a stone cold killer before this guy. He was just such a wonderful, wonderful man, and so considerate of everybody. But in Italian, we used to say, tutto hai parute. Everybody was afraid of him. He was a stone cold killer. So they said. Humpty, you can almost imagine, referred to one of the guys who was a ton of bricks. He was big and fat. So he wound up with a nickname of Humpty, after Humpty Dumpty. He was Humpty. And people called him Humpty, and he was okay about it. He knew he was a big guy. Another guy like that was Tony Tuna. Now, Tony Tuna, when he was born, there was a story about him in the paper. He was the heaviest baby ever born in that hospital. And he grew up to be heavy. Very smart guy, very with it. I recall he played the accordion. A very likable guy, but he was a chunk, and he was Tony Tuna. The next one is Johnny Tags. Johnny Tags, that is a play on his name, but he was well known because he was the most up-to-date dresser of his time, which got him thrown out of school a lot because the principals in those days didn't want you wearing what was called peg pants or zoot suits or having a big curl on your forehead. They threw you out of school. You went home. Johnny Tags went home an awful lot. Johnny Tags went home an awful lot. And finally, the last one, Mickey the Dunce. And again, Mickey was not a dunce, but that's how he was called. Hey, we're going to go to the store and see Mickey the Dunce. Well, Mickey the Dunce's name was Mickey the Dunce because Mickey didn't spill a word out that he didn't have to. So you could always trust Mickey the Dunce. Like I said in my video about Italian gestures, you could trust Mickey the Dunce. So that's it. Some more unusual Italian nicknames. Hope you enjoyed. This is Joe Macaroni. Joe Macaroni explains it all. Hope to see you next time.